share, and you guys can let people in. Oh, sweet. Hello, everybody, which is like a couple of you.
Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy hump day. So glad you're here. It's small group, which, like I said, I think there's just two of you besides us. I'm Kevin.
That means one of you is going to win a mini mock, so that's exciting.
Oh wait, there's someone else coming, and there's Miko over there in Florida. Yep. Okay. So today we're going to talk about this topic, and I've got a lot to get through, so sorry, there probably won't be time to do any questions, but as usual, you guys know you can email us. But I want to talk about this section I, and specifically I-8, evaluating the effects of supervision. For example, on client outcomes on supervisee repertoires. So that gives you some clues. There's actual examples, right? And I'm going to take you over to somehow it's a secret, and I'm not sure why, but on the BACB site, you'll find Supervision Training Curriculum Outline 2.0. So this is the outline that is necessary if you're going to take supervision, or you're going to be a supervisor. You have to take this 8-hour course that follows this. The BACB requires that it follows this outline. So use this when you're thinking about section I, because the questions in section I are going to follow this sort of thing. And we'll talk about the specifics in the next slides, but just check this out. You can go to the BACB site and find it. That's what it's called right there.
Kevin and Miko and I all agree that supervision is the most exciting part of the task list. We love it so much.
So hard. So hard to write questions.
Yeah, we tried to pawn the questions off on each other with this one.
I know. Hey, Miko, you write.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and Miko gets the short end of the sticks.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go through some of what you'll find in that supervisor curriculum training outline 2.0. Like this. These are ways to evaluate effectiveness of supervision of the trainees. So this is I-8 that I'm just quoting, but this is also section 2 of that training curriculum outline. Assess baseline skills. And how do you do that as a supervisor? You conduct interviews to know, what do you know about this topic? Conduct observations of your supervisee. Consult with any previous supervisors of your trainee supervisee, of course, given the consent of that person. Review writing samples that they may have done, or maybe of behavior intervention plans that they've written. Those are ways that you can evaluate the effectiveness of supervision if someone has had supervision, right? Okay, so I think that's probably fine. I'm going to keep going though. So, and again, I'm just repeating that number 2 there. Supervisor should be able to evaluate the effectiveness of supervision of the trainee. That's part of the outline. Schedule observations with clients. That's one way to evaluate their effectiveness. And when you're doing that, conduct, live, in vivo, like in real life observations. Okay, conduct live video observations, and of course, you can just look at recorded observations. So, especially like if you're doing something remote. And I know the last couple of years, there's been a lot of remote stuff. You can do that. It doesn't have to be in sync or right at the same time. Little caveat, you do have to meet with your supervisor live. You can't just, have phone calls or asynchronous meetings. So when you're doing the supervision meetings, you need to meet with them, but they can review things that you did previously, right? A video that you made or something like that. But again, we're just going through I-8 about how do you know whether your supervision was effective? So these are some ways. And to continue, evaluate supervision based on client performance. I love this one. I mean, if you're a great supervisor, you can tell because your supervisees, clients, do well. And when you see that happening, either you're a great supervisor or they're just happen to be a great trainee or great, BCBA in training, whatever you want to call it. But that's a great way, I think, to evaluate whether your supervision is effective or not. You can do this by using objective measures of client behavior addressed by services. So Do you have some way to, whether you're just doing pencil paper graphing, or looking at data that's raw and putting it into a software program, whatever it is. If there's a way for you to see client performance and talk about it together, that's great. You can also interview or use direct observations of the client or the client caregiver stakeholders and find out their satisfaction. We really call that social validity when we're talking about how well do you think the supervision is going, or how well do you think that this intervention is going. You're just really getting an opinion from the stakeholders or client parents or whatever. But still, it's a measure that we can use to say, well, if everybody seems happy, then maybe we're doing a good job. I think it's not as good as the actual data of skill acquisition or behavior decrease or increase, whichever we're looking at. Okay. I feel like I'm cruising through.
You
this.
are.
Okay.
It's impressive.
I was nervous that I don't have enough time. Never have enough time. But okay, we're going to be fine. So other ways, and obviously there's a lot here. So do look at this training curriculum outline at some point, but evaluate supervision based on supervisee or trainee performance. Okay, this is very clear and direct. Like if I want to know whether you are learning something from supervision, let me see if you can do some of the skills I'm asking you to do, right? Objective measures of direct observation of the supervisee or trainee in training or supervision. Obvious. So this is probably the best method. It's direct rather than trying to find out indirectly, asking clients whether they think I've done a good job. Here I can say, I taught you this. Let me see if you remember it, right? Interviews and direct observations of supervisee satisfaction with training and supervision. Okay, so if your supervisees are satisfied, great. I don't really care as much. Like if they hate you or whatever, they didn't like hearing your feedback, that kind of thing. That's not as important as whether they actually learn the skills. But I want everybody to like me, don't you? Everybody,
are you asking if I like you?
No, I'm not asking that.
Most of the time, I like
sort of
you a
walked
lot.
into that one, didn't I? She likes me some of the time, okay, guys. And evaluate professionalism using objective or subjective measures as appropriate. Of course, we want the objective ones whenever we can use them, but subjective ones too. These are sort of subjective things, so I understand why I would say that. How do you know whether this is professional attire or not? I mean, it kind of goes with the culture of your work environment and what does that mean? And I suppose you can get into muddy waters as far as what's appropriate and what's not, or where that line happens to be. But you as a supervisor, and know this, that your supervisor or you in the future as a supervisor get to make those decisions. You may have company policies, but if you are an individual supervisor, you can generally have your own expectations, and you just need to set those. So if you have an expectation, now you can start to evaluate whether your trainees have met that expectation. Social interactions. Are they awkward or shy? Or are they overbearing? They talk too much, they don't listen enough. All those kinds of things. Which one am I and which one are you? Do you talk too much or do I talk too much?
Well,
Yeah.
that is
I'm not
walking-
evaluating Amy,
yeah.
thank God, but you can evaluate your trainee on these things. Attendance, that's very clear. Did you show up on time, or do you call in sick all the time, that kind of thing. Time management, same idea. And your organization, which of course is a little more subjective, but you could come up with some criteria for measuring whether somebody's organized or they're not. Do they have a whole backlog of data sheets that they need to enter or reports that they need to get done, etc. And flexibility. Are they able to problem solve? And can they, especially in novel situations, can you have a supervisee or trainee that you put into a situation that's, you know, new to them, and they can deal with it. They can figure out how they're going to handle it. And of course, that's what the supervisor is there to do, is to help you through that. But we want to know that supervision is being effective, especially toward the end of it, that you should be able to handle these novel situations. Okay, but you're thinking of these as questions on the test, right? So how are they going to ask me about this? And these are the answers. That's why I want you to see this. These are the answers to these questions. Okay, and there's just 2 more slides like this, and then we'll get into some actual questions, okay?
We told you guys it's the driest of the dry, so good job sticking in there.
It's pretty dry, and it's a lot like ethics, and we were talking about this all together, Miko and Amy and I, that it is sort of like, you just need to know it. And if you know it, it's going to be easy. So I want you to see it. I want you to know it. It's just hard to write a question about it because it's kind of obvious, or it should be like, well, that's one of the ways you can measure that. Yeah. Anyway, evaluate fidelity of implementation of specific interventions. Meaning, if I give you as the supervisee a specific task, if I ask you to implement a DRO procedure, or I give you, here's how I want you to do a DTT or a free operant, whatever it is, then I need you to be able to do it. And I can evaluate whether you can or you can't, right? So I can use objective measures. I can set criteria ahead of time. I can ask you as the supervisee, well, what do you think? Or how do you think you just did? We can have, if you have multiple supervisees or someone else, paraprofessionals in the school setting to help monitor each other. That's one way to figure it out. And of course, you as the supervisor can monitor the fidelity of those specific interventions. Okay, that's all that means to me. Here's a specific thing, see if you can do it. And then finally, just for this section, describe the potential outcomes of ineffective supervision practices. This is also mentioned other places in this training curriculum, but here they've sort of tacked it on again, just to make sure you heard it at least once and now twice, but limits the supervisor's ability to replicate the effects of effective supervision with subsequent supervisors or trainees. I'm going to interpret that in my own words, is if you have an ineffective supervisor, and I don't know how many people are here, but you know, it's like most people I meet are like, yeah, my supervisor could have done a better job, right? I mean, I know Amy and I are in that camp too, but if you have an ineffective supervisor, it just becomes more likely that you're just going to do the same thing that your supervisor did, and it's not effective. So that's a bad outcome of ineffective supervision. There's also some more disorganized supervisory fieldwork that is time and cost prohibitive. So look for these things on the test. If it's saying, well, asking about ineffective supervision practices, these are the things you're looking for. Discourages effective supervisors from supervising. You might have been so disgusted or just like, oh God, I do not want to supervise now because it doesn't look fun. My supervisor hated every minute of it too, and so did I, etc. Models ineffective supervisory practices. So yes, if you have a model that's bad, then guess what? Unless you do some work to find a better model or find a better way, you're just copying, you know, what you've seen already. It will result in bad outcomes, or could. And then finally, increases potential risks of harm to current and future clients and supervisees or trainees. Possibly the most important one, because we're talking about clients now. So what we do trickling down to affecting clients, if we're not doing a good job, it likely results in at least, maybe not harm necessarily, but it could, but at least worse outcomes than ideal. It could be better. So we got to keep working on that. I mean, it's kind of, life is a process, right?
It is.
It's a journey. Some of you are thinking, well, yeah, but it would be nice to pass. That would be a destination, right? I agree with you. So let's help you get there. So I'm going to go into the questions here. I'll read them. I'm going to do one, then Miko's going to do one, then I'll do one, and we'll see where we are at that point. Okay. Which is the best indirect measure of the effectiveness of supervision for a trainee? Is it to interview previous supervisors? B, a comparative analysis of baseline versus interventions? C, fluency of the trainee in vivo? Or D, written trainee application forms? And you can chat Miko or Amy with your answer, because I can't see.
Got a couple coming in, Kevin. It looks like we like maybe C.
And I've got a couple A's, so
Okay.
we like to split them for you.
Yeah, I like that. You guys can chat whoever you want. Just don't chat me, because like I said, all I can see is the question here. All right, great. So let's break this down just a little bit. First, it does say indirect measure. So if you were just thinking off the lists that we already went over, then I can see why you said some other things besides A. So that seems like an indirect measure. You can look at interview previous supervisors. And if they had previous supervisors, that might be a good way to indirectly understand whether this trainee learned something or their supervision was effective. A comparative analysis, I'm just going to go through the answers now. A comparative analysis of baseline versus interventions, that's great if you're looking at the effectiveness of an intervention, right? Not that you're looking at supervisee effectiveness or supervision effectiveness. C, fluency of the trainee. So if some of you said that, I agree that would be a great thing to observe your supervisee trainee in real life. But that's a direct measure, which is, I think, better than an indirect measure, but that's not what we're asked. So there we go. That's the key there. Is it's not C, even though that's a better answer. How weird is that? And D, written trainee application forms. I meant that to sound like this is somebody who hasn't had supervision. So how could we know whether supervision was effective if they're just now, applying? So A is the best answer that answers the question. Okay. C is the best answer in general, but A answers the question best. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, great. Well, we had a chance to work that. Okay. Well, you guys can chat questions, of course, and if any of this isn't clear or you just want to talk about something else, please email us. Okay, Miko, I'm going to let you go ahead on this one.
Sounds like a plan. One way to evaluate how well your supervisee has benefited from supervision is to see if your supervisee can successfully complete your DTT protocol, determine if the supervisee has prerequisite skills. Prior to generalization, model and rehearse necessary supervision skills, or supervisee's eventual certification and promotion as an outcome measure. What do we think? I have someone that says A and C. A, cool. So it looks like we're a little bit split between A and C. So let's go through each one. So we'll start at the bottom and go backwards. Let's start at D. D, supervisee's eventual certification and promotion as an outcome measure. This is awesome, and it's probably a goal, but just because your supervisee eventually becomes certified, it doesn't mean that they've benefited from your supervision. And so we want to make sure that we are answering the question that's asked. That's super important to always ask ourselves. So C, prior to generalization, we model and rehearse necessary supervision skills. Again, That is absolutely excellent. It's something we should do. We should model and rehearse at the beginning. It's a part of behavior skills training, but it doesn't relate to how well your supervisee has benefited from your supervision. It might relate to how well you are implementing training, but it doesn't relate to how well your supervisee has benefited. And then if we look at B, determine if the supervisee has prerequisite skills. Again, excellent thing to do. You want to make sure that your supervisee can implement the programs you're writing, but it doesn't relate to how well they've benefited from your supervision. So then when we look at A, see if your supervisee can successfully complete your DTT program. This sounds like a direct observation to me, and direct observations always produce typically the best data. And if you've trained them, they can implement the program. I would say that's successful supervision. So I would go with A in this one. And then something that kind of changed my mindset on section I is to really think about it like section H. So when we're working with clients, what interventions we're going to implement. If you think about that very similarly with staff, I think you'll be in a good place, right? Direct observations are better, determine the function of why the staff isn't doing what they're doing, use reinforcement first. It's the same, really.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I think that parallel is important to note, like just understanding what your staff's preferences are isn't really any different than understanding what your client's preferences might be. Yep, we can use those. All right, thanks, Nico. Moving on.
You're welcome.
Which is not a way, so note to self, right? This is a negation, which is not a way to effectively evaluate the supervision of trainees. Observe a video of your supervisee working with clients. B, extrapolate your supervision effectiveness from your trainees' clients' successes. Let's say that 10 times fast. C, subjectively evaluate the professionalism of your trainees. Or D, determine the initial readiness of your trainees.
Mine are saying
D.
Yep, mine are saying C or D.
I have
C.
D, Nico has C's.
Yep.
Okay, got a D and a C, huh? Okay, so let's look at it in the opposite direction, which I always like to do with these negation questions, just to get my head straight. So I would put it in words like this, which is a way to evaluate supervision of trainees. Which is a way. Observe a video of your supervisee working with clients. Yes, that's a great way to evaluate supervision. I can tell whether they have the skill that I taught them. B, extrapolate your supervision effectiveness. This is a little confusing. Extrapolate your supervision effectiveness from your trainees' clients' successes. That does relate, I think, back to what we said. Well, it's an indirect measure, but if your clients, if your supervisees' clients are doing well, then maybe you're being a good supervisor. And yes, that is one of those that's in the list. So that one still is an effective way. How about C? Subjectively evaluate the professionals of your professionalism. This one, it might have grabbed a few of you because it says subjective, but that actually is something that's listed. You know, when we talked about your attire or your organizational skills, those are things that are a little bit subjective. And so you have to kind of maybe objectively define them, but they're subjective measures in that, you know, not one supervisor is always going to agree with other supervisors on whether somebody met that skill or not. But that is a way to evaluate the supervision of your trainees. Are they meeting those expectations of yours? And finally, D sounds good, but the reason it isn't an effective way to evaluate is you're talking about initial readiness. So if you are just coming into supervision with me and I'm evaluating your readiness, then I'm not evaluating whether I'm a good supervisor yet. I haven't taught you anything. I'm just trying to understand what it is you know. So D is the right answer because it's not an effective way. Okay. So I know I try to mess with your brains here, and I know that the negation questions especially are annoying.
You
So-
have a little bit of time, so I know you have one more slide that you want to go over, and then we can open it up to some questions.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm glad we got through that fast. Is anybody here that doesn't already have an account?
I don't
with us?
know.
Okay, I was
So-
just asking you guys, but I'll go here. For those of you who aren't familiar with our materials, etc., the first thing you see when you come to our website is this Break Down the Beast. So these twice a month, we have 4-hour sessions.
Which we have
Yeah.
one on Saturday, so
That's
join
true.
us.
We
It's
do.
so fun.
So you can sign up for them individually, but now after today, I have to enter some dates, but we'll have them scheduled for the entire year. And you can just sign up for 1 or 2 at a time, but they all come with the all you need guaranteed package. So I'm going to take you there to that BCBA exam prep page and show you. I usually just like to take a minute or less, maybe a couple minutes, because I'm not that fast, to show you what this page looks like. So here are the Wednesday free meetings. You're here. You can come back every week. We got a different topic for the foreseeable future, going all the way through the task list. And if you're not familiar with these, the Tuesday, Thursday meetings that Miko runs go through the task list, but he also gives ample opportunity, right, Miko, to answer questions, to ask whatever comes up. It doesn't have to be.
Plenty of question and answer time.
Okay, great, great. And then you'll see these green ones. These are just the Break Down the Beast, like I said, 4-hour sessions each time. There are, I think we try to do it always on Saturdays now. So 2 Saturdays a month, we've got that. So all of that comes with the All You Need Guaranteed, which is the $4.99 package. Some people like this package, which just has a couple mock exams, 9 hours of videos, going through the task list, and our mini mocks that people really like, those 25 question tests. And of course, I'll just get off this page after this, individual items you can purchase. Okay, so now that we have some time, maybe, how much time we got?
Well, you have exactly 3 minutes, but do you want to spin it or do you want to do questions first?
Is there a question?
Can I give a quick announcement first?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it. So y'all, if you don't already have our $4.99 package or you're interested in winning it for someone else, we are doing a giveaway right now on Instagram. We are about 111 followers. No, we're exactly, I just checked. So we're 111 followers away from 4,000. So as soon as we hit 4,000, we'll be giving away that full package. So feel free to check that out. And then we have some cool stuff coming up on April 2nd, which is National Autism Awareness Day. So be on the lookout for announcements about that coming on our social media channels soon.
Cool.
Excellent.
Okay. So we have 2 minutes. If anybody has a question, if you guys gotten,
I don't have any
anything
in the chat.
If not, Amy has this wonderful little app with everyone's name on it now. It's like a Wheel of Fortune spinny thing. So we can give away a mini mock that I don't think any of you have. And
You have to touch it to spin it, Kevin. He's just staring at it, everyone.
No, I just can't talk and do something else at the same time. Okay, it's spinning. It's spinning. Oh, is it Jennifer? Yes, it's Jennifer.
All right, Jennifer. So if you don't have an account, just stay on a second and we'll get your information because we need your email if you don't have an
We'll
account.
set you up an account and add that mini mock. Like I said, it's not published, so it's not even, we'll be publishing it fairly soon, but it's not yet. So you'll have pre-access to it. Okay, guys. Well, I think we're getting to the end here, but do reach out. It doesn't matter whether you buy something from us or not. We like to answer questions or clarify concepts, and we want you to come up with examples, all that stuff. So please do that. Use us for that purpose, and we're here to help. Any other things to say?
No, I
Okay.
think we're good. So don't, Jennifer, just stay on for 1 second and everybody else.
Cool. Well, take care, everybody.
Hey, Jennifer, do you want to unmute yourself and give us your email address?
Yes. I'll write it.
Hello. Thank you so much.
It's exciting.
My email is J
Mhm.
and AJU, D as in dog, UA@gmail.com.
Okay, make sure I got that. JAJUDUA
Mm-hmm.
at Gmail.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so proud of myself. Like I said, I can't listen and do something at the same time. So
All right,
Awesome.
we'll
Well,
make you an account and put that in there today.
hopefully we'll see you again.
Okay. Yes, for sure. Yes.
All right. Take care.